Well, my name is Kenyon, and I entered the Retiro in 1971. And I was very happy there. I had always wanted a contemplative lifestyle, and even before I entered the congregation, I remember going to our parish priest and saying I felt called to the cloister or the Poor Clares, and he said, no, you need to be out with people. You have a way with people. You're not called to that. So I gave it up a little bit, and then I entered, and I think I was still in formation, and it came back to me, and we had a retreat at the Mother House, and so whatever friar was giving the retreat, I don't know who it was, but I went to see him, and I said, I have this gnawing that I'm supposed to go into the cloister. And he said, well, you go right to Reverend Mother and you ask her. And I was so surprised, so I did. And she was wonderful. At that time, it was Joan Marie. And she said, all right, now, Carol, I want you to wait until after your final profession, and then you come back and see me. I said, all right. So then I was out on mission, and I was teaching for 7 years, and we had a confessor at that time. So I told him that I had talked to our Reverend Mother, and I was thinking of eventually going into the cloister. And he said, absolutely not. It's just a temptation. You put that out of your mind. And I felt so bad, but I obeyed, and I put it out of my mind. Whenever it came back to me, I just, no. So anyway, and then after final profession, I remembered what Joan Marie had said to me. So I wrote to her, and I got to see her, and she gave me the permission to go. I didn't go right away. Why didn't I? I can't remember now. But anyway, I did go, and I was so happy. I just can't tell you the happiness I felt. It was like a dream inside that was finally coming true. I just was so in love with God. That sounds odd, I know, but I was, and the atmosphere was just so wonderful. Everything brought me to God, and I was so happy. Anyway, I was there for 17 years, and then Teresa Sweeney asked me if I would leave the Retiro and be the novice director. And that was a real big blow. But she said, pray about it, so I did. And when I prayed about it, I knew I couldn't say no, because I knew in my heart that I was probably happier in those few years than most people are in a lifetime. I had experienced so much happiness in Retiro. So I knew I couldn't say no, because I had been given so much. So I said yes. And then I was scared to death, because the novices, there were 4 novices, and they were all older than I was. And they all had Joyce had been in the service, and they all had all these careers and everything. It was hard. But I knew God would somehow take care of it. And God did. And I would go to God for everything. And when I didn't know the answers, I'd have all the novices pray with me, and we would discern together. And that's what I learned in the Retiro, how to discern. And I also learned in the Retiro that it was all right to be vulnerable, and I didn't have to have all the answers, and that I could go to God for everything. And so I did. Now, this doesn't mean it was easy, because sometimes I'd be in my room in the bedroom, and I have to talk to one of the novices about something, and that wasn't going to be pleasant, and I'd sit in my chair, and I was so paralyzed I could hardly get up from the chair. I mean, it was really bad. But I did, and honestly, God just worked through everything. It was was like a miracle. When they were professed, I knew it had nothing to do with me. It was all God. And I learned to love them so much. And then I had another group and another group. And when my time, it cost me a lot. I think I'm kind of weak physically, or I don't have much energy, and so I had to stop after 5 years or 6 years. And then Gladys, when I left formation, she spoke to Joyce and me, and she asked us if we would consider a house of prayer in Florida. And I could do that. I knew I could do that. But we had to work full time. That was the stipulation. And so we did have a house of prayer, but it didn't really last because we didn't have the time or the energy to put into it. We would have guests, but we really couldn't minister to. It didn't work out. But it was a wonderful experience to be in Florida in a new ministry, and because we lived the prayer life, the three of us, and so that helped me with the ministry. I had studied CPE, and I was a chaplain in one of our hospitals, and I loved it. I just loved it, being with the people, and so I was there for 5 years. But then again, I wasn't well after a while, and energy-wise, and then Margaret Mary called, and Gladys got another job with the bishop down there, and so it was just Joyce and I for a year. And I was at the hospital, and Joyce was in the parish. And then there were only 2 in the Retiro, and Margaret Mary asked us to come to the Retiro and discern whether we felt we may be called back to the Retiro, or into the Retiro. And so I went, but I wasn't sure. And I wasn't sure because I was afraid that I would become petty or small. It was a temptation, that I would be small and petty and just think about myself. But that didn't happen. And it's been, I said yes, and Joyce did, and it's been wonderful, really wonderful. I don't know what else to say except I'm so grateful, and also I want everybody to know that people in the Retiro are not special people. It's nothing about that. We're there for others. We're there to pray for the world. That is our ministry, to be for others. And I think maybe that was a fear that I'd be stuck on myself, but it didn't happen. Thank God.